What happens when humanity's dream of colonizing a new world turns into a nightmare? As Captain Sophia Reed and her crew uncover an ancient secret buried beneath Aurelia's surface, they realize they've awakened something far beyond their understanding, and there's no turning back. Centuries of dreaming about the stars led humanity to Aurelia, a planet glowing with promise. Captain Sophia Reed stood at the helm of the expedition, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon as their shuttle touched down on alien soil. Beside her, Benjamin Cole adjusted his visor, already itching to explore. This was supposed to be their moment of triumph, the culmination of decades of research, planning, and sacrifice. The crew behind them buzzed with excitement, eager to begin setting up the first human colony outside Earth's solar system. Aurelia had been chosen for its Earth-like atmosphere, abundant resources, and potential for terraforming. From orbit, it looked like paradise. Vast oceans reflecting twin suns, sprawling forests teeming with strange but seemingly harmless flora, and mountains that pierced the lavender skies. The initial scans suggested nothing hostile, just another blank slate waiting for humanity's mark. But even as the group disembarked onto the surface, there was an unspoken tension in the air. It wasn't fear exactly, more like a mixed with the weight of responsibility. They were pioneers, after all, stepping into the unknown. Sophia took charge immediately, barking orders to set up temporary shelters while engineers began assembling prefabricated structures. Her leadership style was no-nonsense, efficient, and sometimes brusque, but she commanded respect. Ben, on the other hand, preferred a hands-on approach. He wandered off almost as soon as they landed, camera slung over his shoulder, documenting every detail. His curiosity often got him into trouble, but he had an uncanny knack for finding things others overlooked. As the day wore on, the team worked tirelessly under the dimming light of Aurelia's twin suns. Night fell quickly here, bringing with it an eerie stillness. The temperature dropped sharply, and the wind carried whispers through the trees, soft, indistinct sounds that made some of the crew uneasy. One by one, they retreated to their tents, exhausted but exhilarated. Only Sophia remained outside, staring up at the unfamiliar constellations. For the first time since leaving Earth, she felt truly alone. But solitude brought clarity. As she gazed at the stars, a thought crept into her mind, unwelcome yet persistent. What if they weren't the first? What if someone or something had come before them? She shook her head, dismissing the notion. Humanity had scoured this sector of space for years. If there were signs of prior visitors, they would have found them. Still, the question lingered, gnawing at the edges of her consciousness. Little did she know, the answer lay buried beneath her feet, waiting to be unearthed. The next morning, the team resumed their work with renewed vigor. Equipment hummed to life, drills pierced the ground, and construction continued at a steady pace. Ben, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. During his explorations the previous evening, he'd stumbled upon a peculiar rock formation, a jagged outcrop that seemed out of place amidst the otherwise smooth terrain. Its surface bore strange markings, faint grooves etched into the stone in patterns too symmetrical to be natural. At first, he dismissed it as geological oddity, perhaps caused by erosion or tectonic shifts. But the longer he studied it, the more convinced he became that these markings were deliberate. They reminded him of ancient petroglyphs he'd seen back on Earth, though far more intricate. Each line intersected with another at precise angles, forming shapes that resembled letters or symbols. He snapped dozens of photos, determined to analyze them later. When he returned to camp, he showed his findings to Sophia. "Look at this," he said, pulling up the images on his tablet. "Do these look natural to you?" Sophia frowned, leaning closer to examine the screen. "They're interesting," she admitted reluctantly. "But we can't jump to conclusions. Could just be weathering." Ben shook his head. "No way. These are deliberate. Someone or something made them." Sophia hesitated, torn between skepticism and intrigue. On one hand, the idea of encountering evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence was thrilling. On the other, it raised questions they weren't prepared to answer. What if these creators were still around? What if they didn't take kindly to intruders? She decided to table the discussion for now, focusing instead on practical matters. "Keep digging," she told him. "If there's more where that came from, I want to know about it." And so, Ben returned to the site, accompanied by a small team armed with excavation tools. As they dug deeper, the markings grew more pronounced, covering larger areas of exposed rock. Then, just as the suns began to set, they hit something solid, a metallic object embedded in the soil. At first glance, it appeared man-made, but closer inspection revealed details unlike anything they'd ever seen. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, shifting colors depending on the angle of light. Word spread quickly through the camp, drawing curious onlookers. Speculation ran rampant. Some suggested it might be debris from an old probe, lost during earlier reconnaissance missions. Others whispered darker theories, that it belonged to whoever had carved those symbols. We only just scratched the surface of the story, but trust me, things are about to get even darker. Stay tuned to see how these explorers confront forces beyond comprehension. By the third day, the discovery dominated every conversation. The metallic artifact became the focal point of the expedition, overshadowing even the colony's progress. Scientists pored over it, running tests and taking samples, but none could determine its origin or purpose. It resisted all attempts at analysis, defying conventional methods of study. Even attempts to cut into it failed spectacularly. The tools simply bounced off as if repelled by an invisible force. Meanwhile, strange occurrences began plaguing the camp. Power fluctuations disrupted equipment, causing lights to flicker and machines to malfunction. Communication devices crackled with static, rendering them useless for extended periods. Food supplies started spoiling overnight, despite being stored in sealed containers. At first, the crew attributed these issues to environmental factors or technical errors. But as incidents multiplied, unease settled over the group like a thick fog. It wasn't just the equipment acting up. People reported hearing noises, whispers in languages no one recognized, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, distant screams carried on the wind. Most dismissed these claims as stress-induced hallucinations, but a few swore they saw movement in the shadows, fleeting glimpses of figures watching them from afar. Sophia tried to maintain order, insisting everyone stay focused on their tasks. Yet even she couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread. Late one night, unable to sleep, she wandered outside to clear her head. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the rustling leaves and occasional animal calls. Or so she thought. As she approached the excavation site, she froze. The artifact glowed faintly, pulsating with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Surrounding it were fresh carvings, symbols identical to those found earlier, except now they formed words in English. Leave. Her blood ran cold. She reached for her communicator, intending to alert the others, but static filled the channel. Before she could react further, the ground trembled violently, knocking her off balance. A deep rumble echoed across the landscape, emanating from somewhere below. When the shaking subsided, Sophia scrambled to her feet, heart pounding. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't inert anymore. Back at the camp, chaos erupted as the tremors woke everyone. Panic spread as people realized their gear was completely dead. No power, no comms, no means of escape. For the first time since arriving, the reality of their situation hit home. They were stranded, vulnerable, and utterly unprepared for whatever awaited them. The tremors that shook the camp left everyone shaken, not just physically, but emotionally. The colony's fragile sense of stability had been shattered overnight. Equipment failures escalated into full-blown crises as systems continued to malfunction unpredictably. Lights dimmed and brightened erratically, casting eerie shadows across the tents. Tools sparked and short-circuited without warning, forcing the crew to abandon critical tasks. Even life support systems began acting up, raising fears of catastrophic failure. Sophia called an emergency meeting in the largest tent, gathering the team around a makeshift table illuminated by flickering lanterns. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed them. "We're facing challenges," she admitted, "but panicking won't help. We need to stay focused and work together." She outlined a plan: prioritize repairs, ration supplies, and investigate the source of the disturbances. Yet beneath her composed exterior, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Something about this place felt wrong. Ben, meanwhile, couldn't shake the image of those glowing symbols etched into the ground near the artifact. He replayed Sophia's account of the word leave over and over in his mind. It wasn't paranoia, it was a warning. And if they ignored it, he feared the consequences would be dire. Against Sophia's orders, he decided to return to the excavation site alone, determined to uncover more answers. What he found there defied explanation. The metallic object now pulsed with a steady, rhythmic light, almost like breathing. Surrounding it, the ground itself seemed alive, shifting imperceptibly underfoot. As Ben knelt to examine it, the air grew heavy, crackling with energy. Suddenly, the symbols on the ground flared brightly, forming intricate patterns that spiraled outward. They weren't static images anymore. They moved, twisting and rearranging themselves into new configurations faster than Ben could process. He stumbled backward, heart racing, as a low hum filled the air. It wasn't mechanical. It was organic, resonating deep within his chest. Then came the voice, not audible, but inside his head, speaking in fragmented thoughts that coalesced into a single message. "You are not welcome." Terrified yet unable to look away, Ben snapped photos until the device in his hand overheated and shut down. When the phenomenon subsided moments later, leaving only silence behind, he bolted back to camp, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Bursting into the tent where the crew had gathered, he recounted what he'd seen. Some dismissed his story as hysteria, but others exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever was happening, it was escalating, and no one felt safe anymore. The divide between skepticism and belief widened as tensions mounted. A faction of the crew argued for immediate evacuation, convinced they were dealing with forces beyond human understanding. Others insisted on staying, driven by scientific curiosity or sheer stubbornness. Among them was Dr. Elena Marquez, the mission's lead xenobiologist, who saw the anomalies as an unprecedented opportunity to study extraterrestrial intelligence. "This could redefine everything we know," she argued passionately. "We can't leave now." Sophia found herself caught in the middle, torn between duty and survival. As captain, her primary responsibility was ensuring the safety of her crew. But abandoning the mission meant forfeiting years of effort and resources, not to mention the potential knowledge they might gain. She ordered increased security measures, posting guards around the perimeter and assigning teams to monitor the artifact continuously. Still, incidents kept occurring. One night, while patrolling near the excavation site, 2 guards reported seeing shadowy figures moving among the trees. Their descriptions matched accounts from earlier tall, humanoid shapes with elongated limbs and glowing eyes. When reinforcements arrived, the figures vanished without a trace. Skeptics chalked it up to fatigue-induced hallucinations, but those who witnessed it swore it was real. Around the same time, strange carvings began appearing throughout the camp. Symbols identical to those near the artifact materialized on walls, equipment, and even clothing. No one could explain how they got there. They simply appeared overnight as if drawn by invisible hands. The crew started sleeping in shifts, clutching makeshift weapons for protection. Paranoia spread like wildfire, eroding trust and cohesion. "We're reaching the breaking point. What happens next will shatter everything you think you know." Don't look away, you won't believe the twist ahead. Days blurred into nights as the situation deteriorated. Supplies dwindled, morale plummeted, and fear became a constant companion. Desperate for answers, Sophia authorized a deeper investigation into the artifact. A team led by Ben and Dr. Marquez descended into the excavation pit, equipped with advanced scanning devices and protective suits. What they uncovered changed everything. Beneath the artifact lay a vast network of tunnels carved directly into the planet's crust. The walls shimmered with bioluminescent veins, casting an otherworldly glow that illuminated their path. Strange hieroglyphs covered every surface, pulsating faintly as if alive. The air grew colder the deeper they ventured, carrying a metallic tang that made breathing difficult. Every step echoed unnaturally, amplifying the sensation of being watched. At the heart of the labyrinth stood another structure, a massive doorway framed by jagged spires. Unlike the artifact above, this one radiated palpable energy, making the hair on their necks stand on end. Embedded in its center was a circular panel covered in symbols that shifted and reformed before their eyes. It looked like a lock waiting to be opened. But how? Dr. Marquez hypothesized that the symbols corresponded to some form of language or code. Using data collected from previous observations, she attempted to decipher them. Hours passed as the team worked feverishly, piecing together fragments of meaning. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the panel clicked audibly, and the door creaked open with a groan that reverberated through the tunnels. Inside, they discovered a chamber unlike anything they'd ever imagined. The walls were lined with crystalline structures that emitted soft, multicolored light. Floating holograms projected scenes of ancient civilizations, beings vastly different from humans, yet undeniably intelligent. These creatures built cities, waged wars, and explored the stars long before humanity existed. But the final hologram chilled them to the bone. It depicted Aurelia's surface overrun by darkness, consumed by something vast and incomprehensible. As they absorbed the implications, the chamber began to shift. The holograms dissolved into swirling mists, and the crystals darkened ominously. A deep rumble echoed through the space, growing louder with each passing second. Realizing they'd triggered something, the team scrambled toward the exit, but not before catching glimpses of movement in the shadows behind them. Back at the surface, panic erupted when the ground quaked violently once again. Rocks tumbled into the excavation pit, sealing off access to the tunnels below. Those stationed outside rushed to rescue the exploration team, fearing the worst. Miraculously, Ben, Dr. Marquez, and the others emerged battered but alive, their faces pale with shock. They recounted their discovery in hushed tones, describing the chamber and its ominous contents. Word spread quickly, plunging the camp into chaos. People demanded answers, shouting over one another as conflicting emotions boiled over. Some advocated destroying the artifact, believing it to be the source of their troubles. Others argued that doing so might provoke retaliation from whatever entity lay beneath. Amidst the uproar, Sophia struggled to maintain control, her voice barely audible above the din. That evening, she convened a private meeting with key members of the crew, including Ben and Dr. Marquez. "We need a plan," she said firmly. "If we don't act soon, we risk losing everything, including our lives." After heated debate, they agreed on a risky strategy: attempt to communicate with whatever intelligence controlled the artifact. If successful, it might offer insight or at least buy them time. Using recordings of the humming sound detected earlier, combined with mathematical sequences thought to represent universal constants, they crafted a rudimentary message. Transmitting it required improvisation. They repurposed damaged equipment to amplify the signal and directed it toward the artifact. For hours, nothing happened. Just as hope began to fade, the ground trembled once more, and the artifact lit up brilliantly. A response came, not in words, but in sensations flooding their minds. Images flashed before their eyes. Alien landscapes, towering machines, and endless voids. Emotions surged uncontrollably. Fear, anger, sorrow, all overwhelming and impossible to resist. Through the chaos, one thought emerged clearly: "You have awakened us." The realization hit them like a freight train. They weren't alone. Whatever had been dormant beneath Aurelia's surface was now awake and aware of their presence. The response from the artifact wasn't just communication. It was a declaration. Humanity's arrival hadn't gone unnoticed, and whatever intelligence lay below viewed them as intruders. Back in the camp, the crew processed this revelation with mounting dread. Some clung to denial, insisting the experience could be explained scientifically. Perhaps residual energy patterns or hallucinations caused by environmental factors. Others accepted the truth but saw no way forward. "We're dealing with something we can't fight," muttered one engineer, his voice trembling. "It's not just smarter than us. It's older, stronger, and infinitely more powerful." Sophia refused to let despair take hold. She called another meeting, her tone resolute despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Whether we understand it or not, we've triggered something," she said. "Our only chance is to figure out what it wants, and fast." Her words carried weight, rallying the group temporarily. Plans were made to document every interaction with the artifact, hoping to find patterns or weaknesses in its behavior. Ben took charge of analyzing the data collected during their attempted communication. He pored over recordings, searching for clues hidden within the sensory overload they'd experienced. One detail stood out. Among the chaotic images and emotions, there had been fleeting glimpses of structures resembling those seen in the chamber below. More importantly, these visions often included symbols that matched the carvings found across the planet. It was as if the entity was trying to convey a message. But what? Dr. Marquez proposed a bold theory. The symbols might represent coordinates or instructions. If decoded correctly, they could reveal the location of other artifacts, or even the source of the entity itself. The idea was met with skepticism, but desperation drove them to act. Using the same equipment that transmitted their initial message, they began broadcasting sequences based on the symbols. Each attempt yielded mixed results. Sometimes silence, other times bursts of incomprehensible feedback. One night, after hours of experimentation, the artifact reacted violently. Its glow intensified to blinding levels, and a deafening roar shook the camp. Shadows coalesced into humanoid forms, towering over the crew with an aura of menace. For the first time, the entity manifested physically, its presence undeniable. The figures didn't attack. They simply observed, their glowing eyes scanning each human face before vanishing as abruptly as they appeared. The encounter left everyone shaken. Sleep became impossible, replaced by restless paranoia. Conversations grew hushed, punctuated by nervous glances toward the artifact. It was clear now, they were being studied and judged. As days turned into weeks, the psychological toll became unbearable. Crew members began exhibiting erratic behavior, snapping at colleagues or retreating into isolation. Arguments erupted over minor issues, escalating into shouting matches that disrupted work and strained relationships. Even Sophia, usually unflappable, found herself questioning her decisions. Was staying here worth the cost? Had they already crossed a point of no return? Amidst the chaos, Ben noticed something disturbing. People were disappearing. At first, it seemed coincidental, someone failing to show up for a shift or missing meals. But when 3 crew members vanished within a single day, panic set in. Search parties scoured the area, calling out names, but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of struggle, no bodies. Just emptiness. Then came the notes. Scrawled in blood-red ink on walls, tents, and personal belongings, they bore cryptic messages. "They are watching. You cannot escape." And most chillingly, "Join us." No one admitted to writing them, and forensic analysis revealed traces of organic material foreign to both humans and Aurelia's native flora. It was as if the very planet itself had bled to deliver its warnings. Sophia imposed stricter curfews and doubled security patrols, but the disappearances continued. Those who remained grew increasingly unstable, plagued by nightmares and waking visions. In their dreams, they saw themselves transformed, not as explorers or colonists, but as prey. Alien landscapes stretched endlessly around them, populated by grotesque creatures that hunted relentlessly. When they woke, the memories lingered, leaving them hollow and terrified. Ben became obsessed with finding a solution. He spent hours poring over the artifact's responses, cross-referencing them with ancient texts and mathematical models. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The symbols corresponded to cycles, possibly tied to the planet's rotation or orbital alignment. If correct, it suggested the entity operated according to specific rhythms, a potential vulnerability. But time was running out. Supplies dwindled further, morale collapsed entirely, and the remaining crew teetered on the brink of mutiny. Sophia knew drastic action was needed, but what? Against all odds, Ben cracked the code. By aligning the artifact's symbols with Aurelia's celestial movements, he identified a recurring sequence that seemed to coincide with periods of heightened activity. His hypothesis was simple yet terrifying. The entity communicated not through language, but through time itself. The symbols weren't static messages. They were markers indicating moments when the barrier between dimensions weakened. Armed with this knowledge, the team prepared for what would likely be their final gamble. They synchronized their equipment to broadcast a continuous signal during the next predicted cycle, hoping to establish meaningful contact, or at least provoke a reaction. As the appointed hour approached, tension hung thick in the air. Everyone gathered near the artifact, weapons drawn, hearts pounding. When the moment arrived, the artifact flared brighter than ever before. The ground split open, revealing a chasm filled with writhing shadows. From deep within, a voice echoed, not in words, but in raw emotion so intense it paralyzed anyone who heard it. Fear, rage, sorrow, and longing surged through their minds simultaneously, overwhelming their senses. Through the cacophony, fragmented images coalesced into a single vision, an endless void populated by countless entities, their forms shifting and merging like liquid darkness. And then clarity struck. The entity wasn't malevolent, it was desperate. Trapped between dimensions, it sought freedom, mistaking humanity's arrival for salvation. But misunderstanding bred conflict, and fear begot violence. The disappearances, the whispers, the symbols, all were attempts to communicate, misinterpreted as threats. Realizing this, Sophia made a decision. "We need to show them we mean no harm," she declared. "If we don't, none of us will leave this planet alive." With shaking hands, she stepped closer to the artifact, placing her palm against its surface. Warmth spread through her body, followed by a flood of sensations too complex to describe. She felt understood. For the first time since landing on Aurelia, she truly connected with something beyond herself. The shadows receded, the chasm closed, and silence returned. Exhausted but alive, the crew stared at one another in stunned disbelief. They had survived, but at what cost? The aftermath was surreal. While the immediate threat had subsided, the crew remained haunted by what they'd witnessed. Trust, once broken, proved difficult to rebuild. Conversations were sparse, punctuated by lingering unease. Many avoided the artifact altogether, treating it like a sleeping predator best left undisturbed. Yet others, including Ben and Dr. Marquez, couldn't resist studying it further, driven by equal parts curiosity and guilt. Sophia wrestled with her own demons. Her decision to engage directly with the entity had saved lives, but it also raised ethical questions. Had she acted responsibly or recklessly? What long-term consequences might arise from their interference? These doubts weighed heavily on her, manifesting in sleepless nights and frequent introspection. Leadership required confidence, but how could she lead when she doubted every choice? Meanwhile, preparations for departure accelerated. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged systems, while scavengers scoured the area for spare parts. Food rations tightened further, forcing everyone to endure hunger alongside fatigue. Morale remained low, but survival instincts kicked in, driving them toward a singular goal: escape. Yet even as they packed up, strange occurrences persisted. Equipment malfunctioned sporadically, and faint whispers echoed through empty corridors. Some claimed to see shadowy figures lurking at the edges of their vision, always vanishing upon closer inspection. Whether remnants of the entity or mere psychological scars, the phenomena served as constant reminders of their ordeal. Despite these challenges, progress was steady. The ship underwent rigorous testing, ensuring it could withstand the journey back to Earth. Fuel reserves were replenished using resources extracted from Aurelia's soil, a bitter irony given their original mission. As launch day approached, anticipation mingled with apprehension. Would they make it home safely, or would the planet refuse to let them go? Launch day arrived under a sky heavy with foreboding. The crew moved mechanically, their actions fueled by adrenaline and sheer willpower. Every step toward the ship felt like a race against time, as though Aurelia itself resisted their departure. Equipment loaded, systems checked, and final coordinates set. Everything seemed ready, yet an unshakable sense of unease lingered in the air, a collective awareness that this wasn't over. As Sophia stood on the boarding ramp, she cast one last glance at the artifact. It remained eerily still, its surface dull compared to the pulsating brilliance it had displayed during their encounters. But something about its silence unnerved her more than its activity ever had. Was it dormant again, or merely biding its time? She shook off the thought, turning her attention to the task at hand. "Let's move," she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. One by one, the crew filed aboard, each carrying the weight of memories they'd rather forget. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the hull as the ship lifted off the ground. For a brief moment, hope surged among the survivors. They were leaving behind the horrors of Aurelia, returning to the familiarity of Earth. But as the vessel ascended, the planet below reacted violently. Clouds churned into massive storms, lightning arcing across the sky in unnatural patterns. The ground quaked once more, splitting open to reveal the same chasm they'd seen before. But this time, it spread rapidly, threatening to swallow entire landscapes. Inside the ship, alarms blared as turbulence rocked the cabin. Monitors flickered, displaying fragmented images of shadowy figures reaching upward, their glowing eyes fixed on the fleeing craft. The entity wasn't letting them go without a fight. Ben scrambled to stabilize the systems, his fingers flying over the console. "We're losing power," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Sophia gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white. "Hold on," she yelled, pushing the engines to their limits. The ship lurched forward, breaking free of Aurelia's atmosphere just as the chasm closed beneath them. Silence fell abruptly, replaced by the cold vastness of space. They were safe for now, but as they stared out at the receding planet, a question loomed large. Had they truly escaped, or merely postponed the inevitable? The journey back to Earth was fraught with tension. While physically removed from Aurelia, the psychological scars ran deep. Nightmares plagued the crew, vivid and relentless. In their dreams, they relived the moments of terror, the whispers, the shadows, the overwhelming presence of the entity. Some woke screaming, others sat frozen in their bunks, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Even in the sterile confines of the ship, paranoia persisted. Ben spent most of his time analyzing data collected from the artifact, searching for answers that might explain what they'd encountered. His findings painted a grim picture. The entity wasn't native to Aurelia. Instead, it appeared to be a fragment of something far larger, a consciousness spanning multiple dimensions, bound to specific locations by unknown forces. Aurelia was merely one node in a vast network, a prison cell holding a piece of an incomprehensible whole. Dr. Marquez, meanwhile, focused on documenting the biological effects of prolonged exposure to the entity. Crew members exhibited symptoms ranging from heightened anxiety to physical deterioration, hair loss, skin lesions, and unexplained fatigue. Blood tests revealed anomalies that defied conventional medicine, suggesting contamination at a cellular level. Whatever had touched them on Aurelia, it hadn't let go entirely. Sophia tried to maintain order, but leadership felt futile in the face of such pervasive despair. Arguments flared frequently, often erupting into shouting matches over trivial matters. Discipline broke down, replaced by simmering resentment and mistrust. By the time they reached Earth's orbit, the crew resembled strangers rather than teammates, united only by shared trauma. Landing brought little relief. As they disembarked, reporters swarmed them, eager for details about humanity's first interstellar colony. But none of the crew spoke, their hollow expressions speaking volumes. Authorities quarantined them immediately, citing health concerns, though everyone suspected the real reason was fear of contamination, both literal and metaphorical. Isolated in medical facilities, the survivors underwent rigorous testing. Doctors probed their minds and bodies, seeking evidence of alien influence. Meanwhile, global interest in Aurelia skyrocketed. News outlets broadcast endless speculation, fueling public fascination and dread. Reports of strange phenomena began surfacing worldwide. People claiming to hear whispers in their sleep, see shifting shapes in mirrors, or feel inexplicable dread in certain locations. It was as if Aurelia's influence extended beyond its borders, seeping into the collective psyche of humanity. Sophia disappeared shortly after landing, vanishing without a trace. Her quarters contained no clues, save for a notebook filled with frantic scribbles. "We thought we were first. We were wrong." Written repeatedly, the phrase served as both warning and epitaph, a reminder that humanity's reach into the stars came at a cost greater than anyone could have imagined. Months passed, but the shadow of Aurelia refused to fade. Governments launched investigations, pouring resources into understanding the artifact and its implications. Scientists debated whether it represented a threat, an opportunity, or something entirely beyond human comprehension. Conspiracy theories proliferated, ranging from government cover-ups to existential warnings about humanity's place in the universe. For those who had returned from Aurelia, life became a living nightmare. Many struggled to reintegrate, haunted by memories they couldn't escape. Others succumbed to despair, taking their own lives rather than endure the constant torment. Those who survived clung to fragments of normalcy, though even mundane tasks carried an undercurrent of dread. Everywhere they went, they felt the weight of unseen eyes watching them. Ben emerged as a reluctant spokesperson for the mission, pressured by authorities to share his insights. He recounted the events in painstaking detail, emphasizing the need for caution moving forward. "Whatever we encountered," he warned, "it's not gone. It's waiting, and it knows we're here." His words resonated globally, sparking debates about humanity's readiness for interstellar exploration. Some argued that the risks outweighed the rewards, advocating for stricter regulations and ethical guidelines. Others dismissed such concerns as fearmongering, insisting progress required sacrifice. The divide grew wider, mirroring the fractured state of the crew itself. Meanwhile, sightings of strange phenomena continued to mount. People reported encountering shadowy figures in remote areas, hearing voices in empty rooms, or experiencing sudden bursts of emotion with no apparent cause. These incidents bore striking similarities to the crew's experiences on Aurelia, leading some to speculate that the entity had followed them, or worse, awakened others like it. Amidst the growing hysteria, One question remained unanswered. Why had the entity allowed them to leave? Had it deemed them irrelevant? Or was their escape part of a larger plan? The uncertainty gnawed at humanity's collective consciousness, casting doubt on every decision made in pursuit of the stars. In the years that followed, humanity grappled with the legacy of Aurelia. Research teams sent probes to study the planet remotely, but direct contact remained forbidden. The artifact remained silent, its secrets locked away beneath layers of stone and shadow. Yet its influence permeated culture, inspiring art, literature, and philosophy alike. It became a symbol of humanity's hubris, a reminder that the universe held mysteries best left undisturbed. Back on Earth, those who had walked Aurelia's soil carried their burden silently. Some found solace in sharing their stories, hoping to warn future generations. Others retreated into solitude, unable to bear the weight of what they'd seen. Among them was Ben, who dedicated his remaining years to studying the entity's nature. Though he never uncovered definitive answers, his work laid the foundation for new fields of inquiry, blending science with metaphysics in ways previously unimaginable. Sophia's disappearance remained unsolved, her final message etched into the annals of history. It served as a chilling epilogue to humanity's first attempt at colonizing another world, a stark reminder that curiosity, unchecked, could lead to ruin. As civilizations rose and fell, her words echoed across centuries, whispered by those who dared dream of the stars. And so, the story of Aurelia faded into legend, its truths obscured by time and fear. But legends have a way of resurfacing when least expected, carrying with them lessons humanity must learn, or risk repeating its mistakes. This is your reminder to subscribe for more stories like this one, because sometimes the universe holds secrets better left buried.